Every aspiring dough artist falls in one of two camps. The first group comprises fearless sculptors who choose polymer clay and embrace the oven baking adventure. They bake, sand, bake again, and accept the scratches and frustration as a part of the artistic ritual. The second group consists of the no-bake rebels who prefer air-dry clay and avoid the oven like vampires who avoid sunlight. Polymer clay behaves a lot like regular modeling clay, but hardens with heat. You can bake it in a home oven or even in an air fryer if you are feeling particularly experimental. This material is excellent for creating a prototype, especially if you are planning to cast your dough later. However, polymer clay requires time and patience, baking, sanding, priming, and plenty of trial and error. Sanding in particular can be a struggle because the material is prone to scratching, and those scratches don't go away without a fight. I go into detail about this process in my video, even comparing different brands and their quirks. But what about air-dry clay? Somehow it hasn't received as much love, and that's a shame because it has so much to offer. Here is the thing. There is no good or bad materials. There are only good or bad results. The only way to find your perfect match is to experiment. Living in Barcelona, I recently received a divine sign from the gods of art themselves, perhaps even from Apollo, the actual god of the arts in both Greek and Roman mythology. This city is an artist's paradise, where you can find a specialized store for just about any creative pursuit. While browsing a ceramic shop for fluma, a material I often use, I stumbled upon a fascinating air-dry clay that caught my attention. No firing is required, incredibly smooth to the touch, and most importantly, shockingly durable after drying. It felt like a moment of divine intervention. After all, Apollo was not just a god of arts, it was also the patron of prophecy. Clearly, it was the sign. And so I decided it was time to explore air-dry clay for BJD dolls making in depth. Let's break it down step by step. Popular brands of air-dry clay. Among doll artists, the most beloved air-dry clay is La Doll, a Japanese brand that has earned its reputation. It's lightweight, easy to sculpt, dries relatively quickly, and scents like a dream. It comes in two versions, the one in blue package and the one in the red package. What the difference? La Doll Premix blue package. Fine in texture compared to the classic La Doll, making ideal for intricate details. Sand more smoothly, giving a polished, refined surface. Less plasticity, meaning it can be prone to cracking if not properly moistened, but suited for fine detailing and finishing lathe. La Doll Classic red package. The original, more versatile version of La Doll clay. Slightly more plastic and flexible than blue version, though not as smooth. Holds its shape well but has a slightly rougher texture, but suited for base structures, large forms and core components. Once dry, it becomes quite strong, but it denser than premix. Which one to choose? If you need precise details and smoothness, go for the blue package premix. If you are working off larger forms or need an all-purpose clay, the red package classic is a better option. You can even combine them using classic for the base and premix for the fine surface details. There is also a third version, La Doll Premiere. A red package, it's a lighter variation of premix with a higher price point due to its refined composition. These principles apply not just to La Doll but to most high-quality air-dry clays used to sculpting. Another lovely material is paper clay, made from blend of paper pulp. It has a beautiful texture and even paintable with watercolors, making it art absolutely joy to use. However, it's too fragile for BJD dolls. If you so much as sneeze near it, expect loose to limp on the doll that is. Other air-dry clay brands like Jovi, Das and Fluma Air dolls are available, but their compositions are quite similar. The main challenge for beginners is dealing with cracks that form during drying. A common mistake is using the clay straight out of the package. This is a sure way to end up with cracks as clay shrinks and dries unevenly. Here is a critical tip. You need to prepare the clay before sculpting. Just as bakers knead dough before making bread. Knead it thoroughly until it's soft and pliable. If it is too dry, add a little water, but not too much, or you will get a sticky mess. Then let the clay rest in an airtight bag before use. Another useful trick to create a clay glue by mixing clay with water until it reaches the consistency of mashed potatoes. Then can be used for attaching parts, filling cracks, and adding fine details with a brush. Working with air-dry clay. One thing that puts some people off air-dry clay is that it sticks to the fingers, making sculpting with bare hands a challenge. This is why I prefer using tools. Some of my go-to sculpting tools include a flat-edged sculpting tool, both hook-shaped and straight, a shape-pointed tool for carving fine lines and details, a spoon-shaped tool in different sizes for smoothing surface, a ball-end tool for curves and hollows, a set of brushes, one flat and ultra-thin for smoothing and finishing. Since BJD dolls are small, I also sharpen my sculpting tools like knives. It allows for more precise detail work. This episode is inspired by the previous success where I guide you step by step on how to create a ball-jointed dough from polymer clay. Sanding and finishing. Air-dry clay has one major advantage over polymer clay. It sands beautifully. You will want a variety of sandpaper grades, ideally with a soft baking, and remaining stretches can be smoothed out with a damp brush and a little patience. For the final polish, let all the doll parts dry completely, then slightly dampen the surface and gently buff with a soft cloth. This creates a beautifully smooth finish. Before I talk about durability and strength, a couple words about the surprisingly long history of the air-dry clay. While today we think of it as a modern sculpting material, its origins go way back. The concept of self-hardening clay can be traced to ancient civilizations that experimented with naturally drying clay mixtured for pottery, sculptures, and everyday objects. Traditional terracotta is a way an ancestor of modern air-dry clay, except that instead of baking it in a kiln, people simply let the sun do the work. Fast forward a few thousand years and modern manufacturers refined the formula, adding cellulose fibers and other components to create clays that dry evenly, resist cracking, and can even mimic porcelain in texture. I will talk about Catalan clay brand, one of the strongest air-dry clays I have worked with. But let's not forget that Spanish has a deep history with ceramics and clay craftsmanship. From intricate Talavera pottery to Moorish-inspired tile work, the Spanish have been perfecting the art of working with clay for centuries. So in a way, using this material is like tapping into ancient legacy, just with fewer medieval kilns involved. Discovering the toughest air-dry clay. Air-dry clay is more fragile than polymer clay, so extra reinforcement is needed for certain parts. Fingers, for example, should be supported with wire. Wrapping the wire in thread soaked in PVA glue before applying clay can provide even more stability. For join areas, leaving them with a suede or glue lever helps prevent chipping. Among all the air-dry clays I have tested, SiO2 Plus from Spain amazed me with its durability. It takes longer to dry, several days. In fact, but once cured, it becomes incredibly strong. If you're impatient, you can speed up the drying process by placing the dough in the oven at 100–110 degrees Celsius. A fascinating feature of these clays is that it comes in different colors. Most air-dry clays are plain white, requiring a primer before painting. With SiO2 Plus, I experimented by mixing natural and terracotta-colored clay in a 4:1 ratio. The result? The gorgeous warm skin tone that can be further enhanced with shading and highlights. Unlike many air-dry clays that crumple under pressure, this one holds up like a champion. Maybe it is Mediterranean climate or some secret Spanish ingredient, I don't know. but it is easily one of the strongest air-dry clay I have worked with. By the way, you can watch the first episode of our stream where I teach my friend Saraya how to make dolls from this material. By now, you might be thinking that the sponsor of this episode is SiO2 Plus from Spain, but no! The true mastermind behind this is Anna Kharitonova from the USSR, bringing you the best doll-making courses this side of history worldwide. Understanding proportion, structure and finishing techniques is the key to creating a well-balanced, expressive doll. It's not just about talent, it's about learning the right approach. You can start for free by following the link and getting access to my template, free lessons, and the invitation to our Saturday Doll Club meetings, where we exchange experiences and connect with fellow enthusiasts. But if you are ready to take your skills further, my full BJD making course offers structured step-by-step guidance. From sculpting and sanding to painting and assembling, every stage is carefully explained to help you achieve professional results. Painting and assembling. BJD dolls made from air-dry clay can be painted with almost anything. Acrylics, oils, pastel, or even heat-set ribbon paints if you are willing to bake the parts at 150 degrees Celsius. To seal the paint, I recommend using Mr. Super Clear matte with UV protection. Eyes can be glass or acrylic. Just remember, if you choose acrylic eyes, don't bake the doll or you will end up with melted puddles instead of pupils. For wigs, grow fur or my hair works beautifully. If you need to dye it, regular hair dye works fine, but for a natural blonde, try brewing some tea and soaking the fibers. Why does air-dry clay crack? Previously, I mentioned how polymer clay biggest challenge is air bubbles, also known as scales or trapped pockets of air. If you thought switching to air-dry clay would be smooth sailing, think again. This material presents its own challenges, and cracking is its secret weapon. Cracks in air-dry clay can happen for several reasons. If the clay layer is too thin and does not adhere well to armature, this often happens with delicate parts like fingers. Solution: coat the wire armature with a material that provides grip. Wrapping it with thread soaking in PVA glue works well. Small cracks can also be filled using a thin slip meter by mixing clay with water. If the clay layer is too thick and dries unevenly, the outer layer dries faster while the inside remains damp, loading the stress cracks. Solution: keep the surface slightly moistened as the clay dries. If you apply fresh clay on an already dry surface without proper preparation, the new layer might not bond well and crack as it dries. Solution: thoroughly moisten the dried surface before applying fresh clay, and let it rest inside closed container for a while before continuing to sculpt. The key to working with air-dry clay is consistency, and more consistency. Avoid letting pieces dry completely until you are finished sculpting. Store unfinished pieces in the humid but not wet environment. You can cover parts with a damp cloth inside a container to maintain moisture without turning them into mush. And if a crack still appears, don't panic. Simply moisten the surface and fill the crack with a slip mixture using a brush. Starting your first doll. You don't need to enter a professional studio to begin. To start, all you need is some clay, aluminum foil for armature, and a few basic sculpting tools and a placeholder beads for eyes. Everything else can come later as you refine your skills. The ideal beginner size: 40 centimeters. It's large enough for details, but small enough to handle comfortably. Before sculpting, sketch your doll in both front and profile views, making all the joints. Cut out templates to guide you through the process. If you need help with proportions, check out my free tutorial and use mine. Improvised tools. You already have everything you need. I often talk about the specialized tools I use, But the truth is that I have collected them over the years. You don't need a fully equipped sculptor in a studio to get started. Look around you. Many household objects can serve as sculpting tools. Needles, paper clips, and manicure tools can all be used for detailing. Wooden sticks, or paintbrush handles, or even a toothpick can help with shaping. Metal cutlery or small kitchen tools can work surprisingly well for smoothing surface. Don't underestimate what you already have. Some of the best tools are ones of you improvise. If you ever wanted to create something meaningful with your own hands, now is the time. And just as house has a foundation, every ball-jointed doll has its balls. No balls, no joints. So let's begin with making perfect spherical joints for BJD dolls. A ball-jointed doll, BJD, is named after its joint system, with ball and socket connections at every point of movement. And yes, each joint is sculpted by hand, sized precisely for the doll. Here is the good news. With air-dry clay, making perfect sphere is actually quite easy. You will need a roller with circular cutouts, aluminum foil, and dry clay. The first step, determine the size. Decide of the diameter of your joint spheres. Keep in mind that the core should be slightly smaller than the final ball to allow a smooth clay layer. The second step, create the core. Make a tight ball of aluminum foil, ensuring it is compact and slightly smaller than the final size. The third step, apply the clay layer. Cover the foil core with an even layer of air-dry clay, keeping the surface as smooth as possible. The fourth step, drying the ball. Let the ball dry completely, and may notice some uneven areas, but that's where the refining process begins. The fifth step, achieving a perfect sphere. There are two main ways to refine the ball's shape. Water technique. Submerge the ball in water until outermost layer softens. Then place it inside the circular hole in a ruler and roll it around, gently scraping off excess clay. Since fingers may slip, hold the foil using a cloth or paper towel. Lollipop stick method is holding the ball is tricky. Insert a thin stick or skewer into it, creating a temporary handle like a lollipop. This makes it easier to rotate and send inside the ruler hole. Once the ball is fully dry, you will have a perfectly shaped joint ready for the next step of your doll's construction. I have already made a tutorial in this series of how to create a doll ball, but using polymer clay. Be sure to check it out. Not only it is a helpful tutorial, but it is also a beautiful episode. Mistakes are part of learning process. I'll show you how to correct them and refine your work. So click the link below to explore my courses, including a free introductory lesson. Start your journey into the world of doll making today. Apollo himself would be proud. By the way,